Super Mario Bros. 3 was nearing its release in Japan, but Nintendo had a problem. The rest of the world didn't even have Super Mario Bros. 2 yet. With the revolutionary success of a video game about Italian plumbers Mario and Luigi, it only made sense that there should be a second game about them. Nintendo agreed and made a sequel for Japan, releasing in 1986, but deemed it too hard to release elsewhere. The rest of the world did get Super Mario Bros. 2 on October 9th, 1988, just 2 weeks before the Japanese launch of Super Mario Bros. 3. This wasn't anything close to the originally released sequel, however. Famously, the game Japan calls Super Mario Bros. 2 USA is the same as the Japanese exclusive game Yume Kojo Doki Doki Panic, but with Mario characters instead. The title screen now has a cheery rendition of the underwater theme from the first game to help trick you into thinking it's all Mario, though. This title screen also includes a brief story preview in which Mario is dreaming about something unusual, then wakes up and sees exactly what he saw in his dream behind a door. That's one way to make an excuse for why this game will be very different to the first game. Before seeing any action, the player is asked to select a character to play with. In the first Super Mario Bros., Player 1 was assigned to Mario and Player 2 was assigned to Luigi. Here, you can choose between Mario, Luigi, Toad, and Princess. She had not yet been fully named. Sadly, there was no Player 2 for this game, but the two-player mode from the original wasn't anything special anyway. Each character has unique properties. Mario is average in all areas, making him a balanced choice for any level. Luigi jumps high but has rather slippery controls. Toad is fast and strong but has a small jump. And Peach is a little below average but can float for a short period of time with her dress. Naturally. The action begins by falling out of the door and taking a short fall into the dreamlike world. Through another door at the bottom of some hills, and it's truly beginning. Completely different enemies that don't get squished when you step on them. Plants in the ground that can be uprooted. Thin white pipes with intricate red patterns on. Well, they count as pipes, so it must be a real Mario game still. You can't be a plumber without pipes. As a starter level, this is actually done quite well. There's plenty of room to learn the different mechanics. The most significant gimmick of this game is that enemies are defeated by throwing something at them. There are plants in the ground to use for this because they're all very allergic to vegetables. Additionally, you can also stand on top of enemies to pick them up and throw them at other enemies instead. Sometimes you might pull something else out of the ground, which in the first level could be a POW block to clear all grounded enemies on screen, or a mysterious potion. The introductory level contains a rich landscape of green hills and rushing waterfalls, and a fast and cheery ragtime-like song playing in the background. Not too far into the level is a door leading inside a hill which contains a short cave section. Clearly this was a new version of going underground, which was a fun part of the first game. Although it was strange that it wasn't accessed by going through a pipe, almost like this wasn't originally meant to be a Mario game. This cave, of course, has its own mysterious soundtrack with it, although it's a bit of a short loop. But very soon, the level goes back outside on top of the hills, and then we begin climbing into the clouds on vines. Vines were actually a hidden bonus that could sometimes be found in the first game, but here we are climbing them into the sky. The exciting part here is that the levels now have vertical depth, which was never present previously. Most levels now end with a boss fight against a very curious creature called an Ostro. Wait, no, it's actually Birdo, but the credits list those two enemies incorrectly. The music changes again for bosses, which is another new feature for a Mario game. The regular pink Birdo will shoot eggs out of her mouth, and to take her down the player must jump onto the floating eggs, then pick them up and throw them back 3 times. She then drops an orb to open the bird head door, which ends the level. Weird. Between levels, there is always a chance to roll a slot machine to win a prize of gaining more lives. The number of times you can roll depends on how many coins you collected in the previous level. These coins are no longer a regular collectible and are only obtained in a certain way to be used at the end of levels. When potions are dropped on the ground, they create a temporary door leading to a shadowy copy of the current screen. In this subspace, digging up plants instead leads to coins. Also occasionally found in the subspace are mushrooms, which will increase the amount of damage that can be taken. Sadly, there were no power-ups in this game besides these mushrooms and an occasional invincibility star found from collecting cherries. My big takeaway from my quick breakdown of level 1-1 is that the levels in this game are quite expansive, with every level feeling much bigger than before. In total, Super Mario Bros. 2 only has 20 levels, compared to the 32 of its predecessor. I'm acting like this was meant to be a Mario game here, but it was released as one, so I do still have to judge it that way sometimes, even if your opinion is that it shouldn't count. So, is having fewer levels a bad thing? No, the size of the levels cancels that out. Each level goes in between a few different areas, and every time a new sub-area is entered, it serves as a checkpoint to return to after a death. I like this checkpoint system most of the time, but sometimes levels feel a little long and that makes it hard for them to help. That's because this game becomes very hard again, and it sneaks up on you relatively early. It's not always a particularly well-designed kind of hard either. The 20 levels of the game are divided into 7 worlds, because everyone knows that 20 is secretly divisible by 7. Each world does sort of have a loose theme to it, such as being in a desert, or maybe in a waterfall cave. Then of course there's Icy Whale World featuring planted rocket ships. I don't even know what to say. It's unique. Those whales are frustrating though, let alone the ice. My personal favorite is Get Screwed Over in the Sky World. It's so much fun, and has a lot of value for the game that you'd never expect for nearing the end. It certainly adds to the feeling of being at the end of the game by throwing everything at you. If you're feeling like you want to skip over a few of these levels, then you do have that option. Hey, wait a minute, option is that's an anagram of potion. Well, in very specific situations, finding a potion could allow you to skip ahead to a different world by using the special powers of the subspace. For example, World 4 has a warp to World 6, which is accessed by dropping a potion on a very specific pipe in level 4-2. These are extremely hard to discover for yourself because there are a ton of pipes across the game and only 3 possible warps. It is not possible to warp past World 6, so even if you're playing a short version of the game, lucky you get to experience the joys of Get Screwed Over in the Sky World. Through each of the worlds, there's one very notable recurring challenge, and that's finding locked doors. How do you unlock them? Knowing this game, it could easily be with something like a magical carrot, but no, you just need a key. However, it's never as simple as that. Finding the key is rarely the problem, except for when you need to pick a pipe like in this level. The real problem is those creepy golden masks hanging out every time you discover the keys. These are Phantos, and they're a contender for one of the scariest enemies ever made in a Mario game. Picking up the key will cause one to shake and start following you all the way until you get in the door you unlock, and sometimes that's a really long way. They're terrifying, and while their movement can be predictable, there are times when they chase and you'll be stuck in a tight space, making it a little bit ridiculous to try and avoid them. In my eyes, this challenge definitely shouldn't have been used as often as it was. Birdos were also very often seen throughout the game as a boss to end levels. Sometimes you'll run into differently colored Birdos. Red Birdos will sometimes shoot fireballs to dodge instead of the eggs to throw back, and green Birdos will only shoot fireballs, meaning you'll have to throw something else in the area at them to beat the level. Now, for the final level of each world, Birdo usually won't show up, and the orb to open the Birdmouth gate to end the level is just sitting there ready to be taken. This, however, won't end the level, because you simply have to fight something. To end a world, you'll have to fight Mauser, Triclide, Fryguy, or Clawgrip. Oh, nope, that should say Clawgrip, but the credits got it wrong again. I would say these are all relatively creative, but I'm instead choosing to see it as a minor flaw. As with Birdo, all of these bosses are defeated by having something thrown at them, though I do appreciate the added variety as opposed to battling Birdo in every level. Something that definitely wasn't expansive in this game was its range of music. After 1-1, you've heard just about every piece of music the game had to offer until the very end. I know space on cartridges was sometimes an issue, and Mario's first adventure didn't have much variety at all either, but somehow they managed to reduce the variety here. While Doki Doki Panic was being converted to a Mario game, the developers did update the music to sound better for the NES, but I wish more tracks had been added aside from new title music and the star theme. At least the same composer was used for both Super Mario Bros. And Doki Doki Panic, which worked out well here. In case you forget about all the game's signature challenges by the time you reach the final level, the game naturally has to remind you about all of them again. This level mostly takes place inside a pretty huge castle at the top of Get Screwed Over in the Sky World. There are a few different paths you could take, which represents the times you might have been lost in earlier levels. Birdo shows up again, only this time it's to give you a key and have Phanto chase you again. How could you forget the greatness of that? All of this happens before the weird Birdmouth, but this time, after picking up the orb, that Birdmouth starts attacking. The way to attack it is, you guessed it, to throw something at it. After being defeated, the mouth opens on the spot, even weirder, and this magically transports you to the third boss of the level, and the final boss of the game. This is Wart, and he has hijacked the Dream Machine to take control of this world. Unfortunately for him, once the player reaches this point, there's also a machine shooting out vegetables, and that just so happens to be his weakness. Throwing them back at Wart is trickier than with other bosses because the vegetables need to be caught mid-air, and Wart is only vulnerable while his mouth is open and he's shooting out deadly bubbles. 6 vegetables are enough for Wart to lose control of the kingdom, and that marks the end of the game. The 4 playable characters give a curtain call for the cheering citizens of the land, as they help the unconscious Wart with crowd surfing across them. The game has also kept track of how many times each character has finished a level, as a nice statistic to see at the end. It was all a dream again. Well, kind of. Maybe? It's unclear. Subcon is the kingdom that Super Mario Bros. 2 takes place in, which is created by dreams somehow. The citizens sent dream signals to Mario and his friends for help, which is how the plot of this game unfolds. At the end, the game shows Mario sleeping, and he thinks about all the strange creatures he encountered. Many of them were never to be seen again in the Mario series, but some of them are iconic characters now. Notable inclusions for the wider series are Shy Guy, Sniffit, and Birdo, but it took a few years before any of them saw another Mario game. Plenty of people will present their own arguments for why Super Mario Bros. 2 shouldn't be considered a real Mario game. Doki Doki Panic was of course not meant to be a Mario game originally, but Nintendo wrote it into the Mario universe in the end and acknowledges Subcon as a real kingdom in the story. It was released as a Mario game and many well-known characters started here, so I think it's fair to judge it as a Mario game, although I don't think that part affects my score too much. I'd say this game was too fond of certain challenges and could have done with more variety in a few areas. But you can't discredit its uniqueness, and sometimes the quirks are a lot of fun to play with. Therefore, my final score for Super Mario Bros. 2 will be 7.2 out of 10. If you like quirky retro platformers, give this game a try. If you like 2D Mario games, give it a try. You might like it, but it also might be too different from other Mario games for your liking, and that's understandable. It might also be too difficult for your liking, and that's understandable. Super Mario Bros. 2 saw a SNES remake as part of Super Mario All-Stars, and also saw a GBA remake as the main portion of the first Super Mario Advance game. The original NES form was released to Virtual Console, but now it's been closed down. The best way to find the original form now is with a Nintendo Switch Online license. Tell me, did you agree with the points I've made? What rating would you give Super Mario Bros. 2 for the NES, initially released in 1988? As ever, thank you for watching, and please continue to be your own unique self. Oh, how the biscuit crumbs are you meant to crumble the biscuit?